If you clicked on this episode, congratulations. You didn't get scared off by the word advanced in the title. So, based on that, I'm guessing that you belong to one of three groups of people. Number one, you have several marathons under your belt and you've done hard training in the past, which included long runs of 30K and longer, lactate threshold runs, long marathon pace tempos, or you rightfully figured you can handle anything. So that is group number one of the people that could have clicked on this podcast. Group number two, you're a regular listener and you've been hearing about our experience following the Advanced Marathoning third edition plans, and you're curious enough to see if we'll change our training. You might also be doing a really long run, so why not tune in to see what we have to say? So that is group number two. And you could also be in group number three, which is just you're on a run and the autoplay feature started playing this episode because your last podcast just ended. And you actually never clicked on the podcast and have no idea what the title is. So if you're in that last category, then stick around anyway, because our guests today will likely provide some great insight that can be applied at any level, even if you're not using any of the plans in the Advanced Marathoning book. Advanced Marathoning has a lot of practical, just good, solid information. So you're at the right place. Hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review running books to help you decide if you would like to read the books for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running or maybe inspire you to try something new. My name is Liz, and with my co-host Alan, we're going to talk with authors Pete Pfitzinger and Scott Douglas about their new book. Well, it's not so new, but this edition is new. It's Advanced Marathoning, and this is the fourth edition. So they have already published this book 3 times, which means it's just a tried and true source of information. Yeah.
Let me tell you a bit about it. So if you want to read the back cover or read the table of contents to see what you're in for and what we're talking about today. Basically, the Advanced Marathoning book is divided into 2 parts. One section is training components, and the second section is programs, so training plans, and how to use them. In the components, there are 7 pieces. I'll quickly go through them. Elements of training: nutrition and hydration, balancing training and recovery, supplementary training, advanced marathon for masters runners, tapering for peak marathon performance, and race day strategy. So beginning at the theory and working all the way through to the final race day practice. And then the section on training programs tells you how to follow the programs, and then gives you programs for up to 55 miles per week. That's 89 kilometers. Programs for 55 to 70, programs for 70 to 85, and training on more than 85 miles per week, which is more than 137 kilometers per week. Additionally, there's a chapter on multiple marathoning. And in those programs, there are 12-week programs and 18-week programs. Lots to chew there, and we'll try and chew a little bit of it in a minute. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our authors and our guests today. Pete Pfitzinger if you probably heard of him, or you're young, you're very young, and you go, well, Conor Mantz, I know him. You might not know Pete, but Pete Pfitzinger was the top American finisher in the 1984 and 1988 Olympic marathons, with a personal best of 2:11, which at the time was phenomenal. Pete Pfitzinger is the 2-time winner of the San Francisco Marathon and placed 3rd in the 1987 New York City Marathon. He was ranked top American marathoner in 1984 by Track and Field News. He's a member of the Roadrunners Club of America's Hall of Fame, so he's a Hall of Famer. He was a senior writer for Running Times up until 2007, in which his popular column, the Pfitzinger Lab Report, appeared. Pete has basically a vast experience of high-level marathon running and coaching. He's also the co-author of Faster Road Racing. Moving on to Scott Douglas. Scott is a contributing writer for Runner's World and Outside magazines. as the author and co-author of several well-known running books, including Personal Best Running, Running is My Therapy, and the New York Times bestseller Met for Mortals and 26 Marathons. Scott's run more than 130,000 miles since starting as a teen. This means one, he's an absolute beast in terms of running. Two, he's probably getting quite old because he accumulated some years in order to get 130,000. Get the get the
Oh,
digs in.
geez.
You need a thick skin to be on this podcast, Scott. He-
Oh,
he's also written
Alan
about
makes
running.
it sounds like it's a senior's home over
So,
here.
so he's also, well, I'm the oldest one in the
Ah,
room, probably. He's also written about running for Slate, The Atlantic, The Washington Post, and others. Welcome to the podcast, Scott and Pete.
Thank
Thanks,
you for
Alan.
having
Thanks,
us.
Liz.
I was able to get time out from the nursing home to join you today. So
I did have an extra line in your bio actually that says one of Scott's previous books was called Running is My Therapy. Having run 130,000 plus miles, that's a lot of therapy. But
a lot of therapy.
well,
hmm.
having already insulted him once, I should probably hold that line back. But there you go. I've gone and said it
There you go.
anyway.
Uh,
I feel
well,
I feel I'm in a safe place with you guys, having spoken to you already on the third edition some 4 or 5 years ago now.
That's right. That's
can't
right. We
even
enjoyed that, and
believe
it's great to be back.
can't even believe it's been that long. Like I was looking for the podcast I'm looking and I look back 1 year and 2 years and 3 years and 4 years and finally I found it and I was like, it was that long ago? It feels like it was, feels like it wasn't that long ago.
One of the things we asked at the end of the last podcast, and you can go back and listen to it if you wish, was, do you think there'll be a fourth edition? Because 1, 2, 3, do you think there'll be a fourth edition? And at the time, you didn't really know. I don't think there were any plans. So here we are.
So how did the fourth edition come to be?
There's been a lot of change. So really, when it feels right, we talk to Human Kinetics about the next edition. I'd say there's more, and Scott will chime in, I'm sure, more new stuff, more changed stuff from the third to the fourth than there was from the first to the second or the second to the third. So yeah, it feels like the right time.
I mean, from my standpoint, the big thing that really stood out, like even by the time that the third edition came out in 2021, which means that we were mostly working on it in 2019 to 2020.
Yeah.
By the time the book comes out, there's these shoes that are super,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and obviously by that time they had started to vastly change elite running, but by even by 2021, they're vastly changing non-elite running, especially for people such as advanced marathoning readership who are, trying to run the marathon significantly faster than their average training pace. So that was an obvious thing that, excuse me, that everything else aside, like, I don't know, even if nothing else had changed, it's sort of like, could we like put out an addendum or something?
Yeah.
So that was a big thing. And then Pete can get into this more, but the use of super shoes have sort of changed somewhat how some people train, right? And how some people think about recovery and whatnot. And so then that sort of opened a bigger question of like, well, what else has changed? Not only around recovery, but training approaches, et cetera. But from my perspective, so there's that. And then also, just after a while, the programs are so valid. It'd be a shame if people look at the cover and say like, if people look at the cover of the third edition, it's like, okay, Shalane Flanagan's retired. Like most of the people on the cover are retired. And you start thinking like, well, okay, great. Like it's just, it was time, especially given how I'm sure you've learned as you've talked to other authors, like, just like sit down and like, hey, I think I'll put it out a fourth edition and it'll be out next week. It takes time. And so, although it did seem in a way like, gosh, the third edition just came out, by the time you get going on it and it comes to market, then significant number of years can have passed.
Mhm.
And this way, hopefully, well, we'll see. Like robotic shoes will come along next week and then
Oh my
upend the
gosh.
whole
And then
thing.
the book will be obsolete.
Yeah, but so yeah, part of my motivation, I can't speak for people. Part of my motivation was this is a great book that so many thousands of people have found useful. It would be a shame if a couple elements of it made
Turn
people think
people
that the
off.
whole
Yeah.
thing was dated. Yeah.
Or just made them doubt the validity,
Right.
because it's like you'll have like one thing that maybe was outdated,
Yeah.
and then people will be
Right.
like, oh, well, I guess I
Right.
won't use that one.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm going on a tangent here, but I think probably the first or maybe the second edition, I don't know. So the first edition came out in 2001. So maybe it was in second edition. One of them, we actually had to, I think, if I remember correctly, like we actually felt obligated to talk about hyponatremia, which is like taking in too much plain
Yeah.
water, which, that was a thing 20 years ago.
Hmm.
Like, and you don't hear about that anymore. No doubt, because everybody read our book and got up to speed on it. But I'm just always leery of
Yeah.
there being those things in there that it's logical to think, well, what else in here are they living in the past about? So
I guess one of the problems is things come and sometimes they ebb and flow. So,
yeah,
you might see, I don't know, I can't think of one offhand, but things have a little season almost.
yeah, sure. Well, I mean, so 20
Yeah.
years ago, like all the elites would go sit in the mountain stream after pretty much every run.
Yeah.
And now now they're 20 years later contemporary ilk are all sitting in the sauna
Yes.
after
Yep.
after hard runs. Yeah, so things come and go.
Do you take caffeine when you run? Lots of people do because it's in gels and stuff. And caffeine's legal and it's been proven to work. There's actual science that shows that it improves your endurance running performance.
And there's anecdotal data from when you have your coffee in the morning and you go for a workout versus when you forgot to have your coffee or you didn't have time and you went for a workout and it was terrible.
And the trouble with coffee is there's a lot of liquid just to get your caffeine dose.
Yeah, so then you have to stop for the bathroom mid-workout. Very impractical. Which is where Caffeine Bullet comes in.
What's Caffeine Bullet, Liz?
It's a caffeine supplement. It's wrapped up like in a candy. And it tastes like candy. And you can get 100 milligrams or 85 milligrams, which is about a cup of coffee, but without the liquid.
So we've tried the mint flavor and the chocolate orange flavor. They're both pretty yummy.
If you want to try them for yourself, we do have a 20% off discount code. So go to the link in the show notes and you can check out what Caffeine Bullet is and get your 20% discount.
Pretty generous.
It is pretty generous.
And we'll get a small benefit, so you're helping out the
Speaking of which, back to the podcast. Yeah. I guess at the time you didn't really know super shoes if they would come and go as well, because they were talking about banning them at one point, because they were saying, because at the beginning nobody really believed that the shoes could have that much of an effect, and then finally like there were independent studies and they were having an effect, and then there was some kind of discussion. I remember people saying that they should be banned, but then that never happened. So, and I think that would have been probably around the time that you wrote the last
Yes,
edition,
right.
maybe?
So
Something like
so
that,
my
yeah.
memory is like right around like the right before basically before the pandemic hit, right? So like the US marathon trials were in late February of 2020. And that's all the chatter was about. Like, what are we gonna, how are these things gonna be regulated, et cetera? And then, pandemic sort of took people's minds off of such
Off of
things.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
the book follows the basic format, I think, and the principles that the third edition follows, in terms of general. From my point of view, that's pretty reassuring because I've been using the third edition to inform my marathon training for a few years now. But it also shows that, the basic things that you have to do in terms of miles to run, speeds to run, and don't really change. I mean, it's a question of how you nuance it to get the best effect, the best bang for your buck, so to speak. But I did notice that even though the sequence and the basic format is the same, when I got to the references at the back, there's a massive difference in the list of references. So you're obviously keeping the research. One of you is, not you, the researcher is. In my head, I guess I've got Pete labeled as the person with the high level Olympic experience and Scott as the person with the research background, but I don't know if that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, I'm also have a background as an exercise physiologist, so I'm guilty
Okay.
on a fair bit of the research. And that's important, right? And you talk about things that come and go. So there'll be the latest study and it'll say something and it'll be all the rage. And Scott and I'll have a debate. What do you think about this? Is this thing real? Is this thing enduring? Or is this a one-off? And is
Yeah.
there one study or there, 10 studies? So yeah, the references do change a lot each edition, and there's a fair bit of looking around, trying to see what's out there that's new, deciding whether it's worthy to include or not. And there's a lot that's rejected because you could have a 500-page book that just confused the heck out of everybody as well if you're not careful. So yeah, we do a lot of research, and Scott lives right in the crux of the marathoning world and gets all sorts of information. That's the real McCoy, what people are actually doing. And, at the elite level and at the more, serious recreational level. And so he's always coming up with, well, yeah, but here's what so-and-so is doing, or here's what this group is doing, or here's what a trend I see coming. So yeah, we're great. Great balance there, and we have some good debates back and forth between each other.
So if we've seen super shoes and I guess nutrition and fueling coming more into the fourth edition, maybe we'll see bicarbonate coming into the fifth edition, depending on how that pans out with the running world.
Yeah, probably more for shorter distances, but we did look at that and rejected it for
Okay. Didn't make the
honors
cut.
or yeah. But if you were talking about 1500 5K, ooh, yeah, probably makes the cut. But there's a fair bit of change in nutrition this time. So
Yeah.
so much more emphasis on carbohydrate intake per hour and really optimizing that, and use of hydrogels and training the gut, all those aspects, which there's a lot more research, there's a lot more anecdotal and practical information out there than there was. One thing that's interesting, I think there was maybe one study had come out for the third edition, but it's about use of caffeine and your genotype. So there's 3 genotypes that you might have. One where you get a nice benefit from caffeine, one of which you get a little benefit, and one of which you may actually do a bit worse. And ooh, that's interesting. Who would have guessed that 15 years ago? But now there's several studies that that back that up. So yeah, there's a lot out there. There's more solid around protein intake than there used to be. The increased needs for endurance athletes, the importance and usefulness of getting it in, soon after training. So yeah, the nutrition chapters updated quite a bit. One of the things I'm most pleased with that is actually the training programs, because we went through them very systematically, looking for any little stretches where there might be 3 days in a row where there's 2 hard days and a moderate day.
Yeah.
And that 3 days was just more than there should be. So we've backed those things out. We've made some changes where what we call, say, a general aerobic run becomes a recovery run, a little shorter, a little slower. just trying to ensure that the readers are ready for the next hard session. With the two higher mileage, the 70 to 85 miles and the 85 plus, we've reduced the number of doubles. Just thinking, well, hold on. In some cases, the double's there just for some more mileage. Do we really want that? And do we really want that on, in terms of the need for recovery? So we made a lot of subtle changes to the training programs, but I think the result is the key sessions are all still there, but the ability to be ready for the next key session week after week is much improved.
I think my personal experience was with the sort of two and a half difficult days in a row, or a general aerobic on day 3. They became recovery runs anyway because I just needed to recover. So I think Liz and I probably ended up doing that. We'd say, okay, we need to try for the lower end, the slower end of the recommended pace.
Sure.
So,
but it's also because the workouts are scary enough that you're like, that you're not just gonna pull it out of thin air. You kind of have to have recovered because
Sure.
marathon pace goes from 13K to 16K to 19K. I mean, those are huge jumps. It's like you miss one because I don't know, you had a family picnic that weekend. And the next time around, like you're doing like almost double the mileage in marathon pace, which well, okay, maybe not quite that much, but
You're absolutely right. I mean, each edition, I think we understand the readers a little better. And, that's largely due to Scott, and it's largely due to the feedback that we get because, we, through various means, social media and emails and what have you, people are they're writing and saying, well, here's my experience, or, hey, I've got this coming up. What do you think? So, yeah, we understand, that person who has some marathon experience who wants to improve, they usually have a regular Monday to Friday job. So how can we not kill them Monday to Friday? They'll say, well, I got injured and here's what I did, or it snowed for 3 days and here's what I did, whatever it might be, and how they adjusted the schedules. And that's one of the cool things, I guess, in the new edition is we have many examples of that Scott had pulled together.
Yeah.
So yeah, each time we understand the readers a little more.
That's pretty good advice in the book where it says, okay, so we know you're human. You're going to make these adjustments, aren't you? So if you'd make this adjustment, do we think that that's a good idea or a bad idea? And there's a whole sequence of those things where you can almost get every adjustment that somebody would likely make in practical terms, and you explain why, if you're in this sort of condition, you can go for it, or why you really shouldn't do this because, and that's pretty important, I think, because people are human beings and they have, they're going to get injured, or they're going to have vacations, or they're going to have human factors on there. They can't be robots and just deliver it all.
Well, or the day that you're supposed to do your, I don't know, I guess the lactate threshold depends which one, because the 6Ks are very doable, 8K a little less. The 11Ks, absolute monster of a workout. I failed every single time. So
Liz has learned that lactate threshold is her nemesis, basically.
yes, absolutely my nemesis. And I try and do it before work just because I'm mentally fresher and I take, caffeine and all these things. But yeah, it's just that 11K was just, yeah, too much. But but for the marathon pace, those, I find that other than the 13K, they all just feel really hard. And you just, oftentimes I like training for marathons in the summer because I don't like trying to run paces when I'm wearing 3 pairs of tights, one on top of the other in the wintertime, which is, it just makes everything harder. And then, yes, you could train by effort, but the paces end up being so slow that you don't know what it means on race day. So you don't know how to, you just don't know what to do come race day because you've been training so slowly but then in the summer you have the heat. So, you can on the one day when you have your 16K marathon pace, like it might be 30 degrees, and then you can say, okay, I failed that workout because it was hot, but you don't get a redo because there's no place in the training calendar for that. So I don't know, like normally what we would do is we would just say, okay, well, we did the effort, so we just move on. But because those runs are supposed to give you confidence, like would there be any benefit to, let's say, just, the next time the marathon pace run comes around, like let's say it's supposed to be now the 19K, what if you did the 16K to see if you could actually nail it this time? Um, or is it better just to put in the effort and move on and call it a day?
Um, I think it's best to do what makes sense for you in the context of your, individual situation. So forcing it rarely works, whether it's a track workout or a lactate threshold workout or a marathon pace workout. And you don't want to go out there, put in the effort, and have it not go well, because everything should be building on itself, week after week and over the period of the marathon preparation. So if the right thing to do is to shorten up that marathon pace run so that you can maintain the pace, I would say, do that. And yeah, weather's going to get in the way. Yeah, whether it's extreme cold and snow and ice, or whether it's extreme heat, both of those can certainly get in the way.
A little tweak that Liz and I have used on a couple of occasions is when the 19K marathon pace run comes around, you're getting into the period where you recommend to do some sharpen up races. So what we do is we enter a race, usually a half marathon, and we'll go, okay, we're doing a half marathon race, but we'll do a warm up and we'll do a cool down, and we'll run the half marathon at marathon pace. And you're doing that, you're doing that on a training week. So you've not allowed yourself a taper or anything, but also you're not running full out for a race result. You're looking to keep and interestingly, you can do the training run, which is 19K, and struggle terribly, or you can organize it as a race and go in and run 21K at the same pace. Okay.
And it feels much easier.
Okay, and you go, oh,
Yep.
I had a little bit left. I could have kicked that guy off at the end, but I resisted. Strangely,
And you get a chance to practice drinking and
yeah,
do the
The
logistics
gels
the
and
logistics
everything.
work out well. Like otherwise you're taking
yeah.
care of your own drinking. Like
That probably brings me to another. So that's a tip for our listeners. It probably brings me to the other big thing that Liz and I were sort of juggling with when we were doing this training, and that is we're going for a marathon result that we've never had before. So a PR, effectively a PR for your marathon, and so you're doing a marathon race pace faster than you've ever done a marathon race pace run, and you're looking to sort of bridge yourself from where you are now to where you want to be during your training program. So, do we start off running a little slower than our target marathon race pace when we begin the training program? Should all our paces be a little bit slower and gradually move up as we move up our fitness, or does it kind of allow for that? If we're going for, a PR, we should be setting our paces based around that PR.
That's a good question. Scott, what do you think about that one?
I think that if you're talking about the marathon pace stuff, the initial ones are short enough that if you're struggling at that pace at that time, then maybe your goal is a little too ambitious.
Okay.
I would say that do you know who Renato Canova is? He's this famous
Yeah.
Italian coach.
Yes.
Like every day is day one of the training program.
Okay.
Um, you have to be open-minded enough to make an adjustment because, right, don't you set like basically arbitrary time goals? And
Yeah.
then part of the point of the training is to see if it's a realistic time goal or not.
Yeah.
Anyway, I personally would say if someone asked me and I didn't have access to Pete, I would say at least try the first marathon pace goal at what
hmm
your current goal is,
hmm
and then be honest with yourself about how that went.
How hard it was.
So
Yeah.
try to be realistic in your goal setting, realistically positive, um,
Yeah.
and then be realistic about what your training is telling you afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, you two are experienced enough that you're not going to be like somebody who's like, well, I ran through 20, now I want to break 3 hours,
Yeah.
you know. Um, so I mean, yeah, so the initial
Yeah.
goal is like, yeah, how do you know if it's within the sort of what realistic and optimistic at the same time? How do you know until you try? I would say.
Hmm.
Pete, what do you say?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. There's different contexts. So you have somebody who's a very good runner from 10K to half marathon. They're moving up to the marathon. Maybe they've done one and it didn't go that well. And
Mm.
so they might realistically be chopping 15 minutes off because they've got that in the bank, or they've got that in their background.
Yeah.
Um, and they mainly they need to get their pacing right. But if someone's done 5 marathons and they think, right, I'm going to cut 15 minutes off, well, they're probably delusional. The book's not that good, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The book isn't going to substitute for some physiology.
Yeah. If I might be getting in the weeds here, but okay. So there's an American. He was a top runner at BYU, now pro. His name is Casey Klinger, and he debuted at Chicago last fall. Um, he wound up debuting in 2:16, and while aiming for and all his training indicating 2:08, 2:09 on a good day, right? And so two things. In his next marathon, it would be silly if he said, okay, I'm going to aim to run 2:14, right? This guy he broke an hour for the half marathon at Houston earlier this month.
Okay.
Um, the second point being that when he did his first, planned marathon pace run at what, 4:55 a mile, and they're going like 6 or 8 miles at that pace, that better feel pretty easy to him. And um, yeah, I don't know. He's a good example of what Pete was talking about of like this in his first marathon. Oh, you're in 2:16. You think like, well, PU, you know, it would be completely rational for him to think, I was on pace for 2:08, 2:09. I had the training.
Yeah.
I can do it at my second time. If his next four are or if he bombs in his next four and is always in a 2:14, 2:16 range, then maybe there's a intervention from the coach to say like, how about aim for 2:11 sort of thing,
Yeah.
and get that and then work your way down.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe we'll back up to the nutrition a little bit before we get, all into the weeds of the plans, because we noticed a few changes there. You do talk about nutrition, but you also talk about hydration, and I think you talk about it a little bit more in this book than the last edition, in terms of just like how much dehydration affects performance. And so you do want to, I guess, aim for like replacing at least most of the fluids that you're losing. And you mentioned also that it could be a struggle with those little cups at the aid stations that you're trying to run through at 4:15 per kilometer in my case, and you get most of it on your shirt. So so I always kind of wondered if, there's a lot of these hydration vests, and I know that some races don't let you wear them. I think Boston is one of those because it looks like a backpack, and I think you're not allowed. But assuming that you can wear a hydration vest, is it worth carrying, let's say, one or two bottles, which would be like half a kilo to a kilo of extra weight at the beginning that you would eventually consume? But it would maybe ensure that you're going to get some of that hydration rather than trying to rely on the aid stations and then not getting enough. Like, what's your opinion on that? This was not in the book. It's just a personal question.
Liz is determined to wear
I've
a
been
hydration vest for a race.
yes, because I'm wondering because I've in training I have no choice. We don't really have we train like the places we train in they're like the suburbs. There might be a one water fountain in 24K. So we're wearing hydration vests for training. And yes, they add some weight, and when you get to not wear them at the beginning of the marathon, it's like part of the feeling like you're flying because you don't have this extra kilo. Um, but at the same time, I wonder if it might actually help because I would get more fluid and I would
That's a
I would
great
lose less.
question.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder if there are any new questions. At least this one for me is a new one that I haven't thought about. I mean, you answered a little bit that it feels great when you don't have the vest. So, man, that sounds like a great thing for training. Wear that
Hmm.
vest and put it up and then take it off for race day. If it's a warm day, ooh, that's covering some of you up and it's reducing, cooling. So
Hmm.
warm day, you need the fluid more, but warm day, it's heating you up more at the same
Yeah,
time.
that's true. Yeah.
Um, but really slowing down, or depending upon, depends a little bit on the marathon goal, but to stop at the stations and drink and do that in 6 or 7 seconds each time, um, that's not much added time, and you're getting the fluid in. So
Hmm.
uh, maybe on a cool day, and maybe somebody who's quite slow. But if they were quite slow, then they can take the time to drink. I don't know, Scott. What do you
Hmm.
think?
So I think this is an area where the most elites have no idea what most marathoners go through, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
they have a
I
They
bottle
they have their
service.
bottles every
yeah.
5K, and
Yeah.
they have, and you can they can reliably know that that's going to happen, and they can practice that in training, and they can follow the current research about, boy, if you can get in, this many grams of carbohydrate per hour. Um, so that's my anti-elitist thing.
Well said, well
There
said.
are so if I would think a potential compromise would be, there are some brands such as Nathan is one, I think. They make these like handheld collapsible bottles, and like, so I know a guy. I don't know how, if you all follow like online running shoe reviewers, but there's a bunch of
Hmm.
British guys named the Run Testers, and their
Yeah,
fastest guy is like a
Oh, I've seen
224
them.
guy,
sure.
and he runs with like, so he runs like 224 at London. He's not getting special drinks or anything, and he runs with like a handheld bottle that's sort of collapsible when it does nothing in it. And I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure that he is trying to sort of fill the bottle along the way,
Hmm.
um, and doing that in conjunction with gels as his source of carbohydrate.
Okay.
That's a potential solution, but it's tough. There was, whenever that was, a few years ago, when Shalane Flanagan wanted to do all the world marathon majors, and
Yes, I remember that.
she was running not in the elite after she retired from pro running, and she called a little slacker, be like, boy, it's really tough back there to get enough to drink. So
Yeah,
like, that was eye-opening for her.
yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome
So
to the
yeah,
club.
Yeah.
that is a great, like, yeah, how do you practically solve that thing? If it's nine, if it's, I'll be like you, I'll use Celsius. If it's 30 degrees Celsius, if it's 90 degrees outside, obviously you're not going to run fast anyway. So yeah, you may
Hmm.
as well carry something. But if it's great weather, you're trying to run a PR, yeah, what is the trade-off? We're not really answering your question. But
Hmm.
I would say, from a practical standpoint, these like handheld collapsibles that have like a strap. But again, you would want to practice that, obviously.
In Training,
in training to like, what does it feel like to run for a long time
for
with this thing?
30K with that
Yeah, with
thing.
this thing
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
hand. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you might think it's great for 10K, but
Yeah.
maybe not so much for the other 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to try and summarize for Liz, you wouldn't really expect the pros to wear a hydration vest because they're getting a bottle service. But if you look at everybody behind the pros, all the way down to well slower than 3-hour marathon that you're looking for, Liz, hardly anyone wears a hydration vest. So
Mm.
the court of public opinion doesn't seem to feel that it's a good idea. However, knowing you, what I would say is if you think that mentally it will give you an edge because you go, aha, I'm safe from dehydration because I'm wearing this.
Yeah.
Because I know you flip out about strange things sometimes. That's probably the only reason I would give.
Yeah.
If you think I'm gonna get a hydration edge, it would be better to learn to drink more. We'll
I
we'll
guess.
set up
Yeah.
in the book it talks about setting up a drink table at track. In summer we'll set up the drink table at track and run around it at
Actually, we could set it up on our
at,
street and because it's
at
a
marathon
1K
pace.
loop around the
Yeah.
block.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
house.
That's because that's more realistic of like you're never really going to get an aid station more often than let's say once per mile. Like some races really have a lot of aid stations. Um, Most of them it's more like 3K. So like 2 miles, I
And
guess.
we could even try and okay, we're coming up to your house with the drink station. Let's take a gel before we hit there and see how that feels with getting a good chug of water and how much water are we getting in and what does that
Hmm.
mean for X number of stations. We've never really done that in detail, and I think the book
Mm-mm.
kind of suggests that you should. And that's a darn good suggestion. It's something that we've never really
No,
done. We've
no.
increased our number of gels, and we could just about get those down now. And now we need to
Yeah. Mm.
maybe
I'm not that successful after 24K
increase
though.
our
That's the thing. I
hydration
and
technique.
Yeah, I think that maybe it goes with the hydration because I think probably what happens is I get more nauseous at 24 plus because like maybe I haven't had enough to drink and so all the gel is just sitting there, you know. All the gels that I took for the first 24K, they just they just don't go down. So,
Liz,
yeah.
have you tried a few different brands of gels? Because it does seem to vary
Mm,
depending on what you're having.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think for a while I was liking the Morton. I found that the Morton kind of I don't know, I guess maybe it's because it's flavorless, so I was able to use them for into the race longer. And then the last race or two, they didn't really work anymore. It was like I don't know, it was like back to the drawing board. I'm not really sure why. I don't think they changed the recipe or anything. I just think it's something wrong with me. So, um,
Hmm.
and since then I have tried like I've anytime somebody in the club has a new brand, I'll order it and then I'll try it for a while, you know, and I think yeah, the beta fuel I find has a nice texture, doesn't have too much sweetness to it, so and it's got more carbs. It's got like 40 grams instead of 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I find personally is that in race conditions, um, whichever gel I use, I get what do you call it when you get have too much of the same thing? You get
Palate fatigue?
flavor fatigue or palate
Flavor
fatigue.
fatigue? Yeah.
So what I've tended to do for the last 2 or 3 marathons that I've done is actually have two types of gels and then choose it based on how I feel in the moment. So I'll actually go, it's time to take a gel. Ooh, I'd really rather have this one and take that
Mm.
one. So I have two types of gels. Of course, if you run out of one, you got a problem.
Now you're stuck taking the other
Yeah.
one.
But I
Some
find
cool psychology.
actually find mixing them up actually makes it easier, strangely.
Hmm.
Yeah. I was going to say there's some cool psychology in that. Hey, in the middle of the marathon, I suddenly have a choice to make and something positive. I want this one. Ooh,
Yeah.
hold on, I'm out of this one. Oh no.
Well, I have
Mm.
a default. I have a default, which is, I start with A and I go A B A B A B. That's my
Okay,
default. That's what I'm going to do unless my body tells me something else. So
right.
I try to put the decision process out of the way. If I go, oh, I think I'm going to gag if I take this molten gel, then I'll take the other gel.
So now let's talk about supplemental training because this is a place in the book that actually you changed quite a bit. I mean, I guess it didn't fundamentally change. It's still like the you've got the resistance training and the supplemental training in terms of cross training for aerobic benefits, and you have drills but you did change a little bit the exercises, just like how many there are and the number of sets and reps. But I noticed that, the internet is all full of now everybody's lifting heavy. And the strength training exercises have not followed that. They've kind of remained there's like mostly body weight, some dumbbell exercises. And so I'm wondering, is that because we need to save our energy for actually running those trainings that we can barely do, or or is there some other reason for that? Like, is it because like for you your athletes would do the heavy stuff off season and not in those 18 weeks that you're training hard?
Yeah, that's a great question, Liz. I mean, the key thing is you can put in lots of exercises, and if people don't do them, there's not that much benefit. And
Mm.
and I think that's the reality a lot of the time, right? So people have busy lives, they're trying to fit in the running. Our running training is tough. And
Mm-hmm.
so uh, in previous editions, when we had more exercises, that's more daunting. It's like, hey, I got to do, 10 different exercises, say. Well, the likelihood of doing that is less than if there's six. So we tightened it up. Um, we did more research, more trying out ourselves to see what are the exercises that are the key ones if you're going to, if you're going to reduce it, and hoping that more people actually do the exercises, they fit it
All
in.
right. Okay.
And so that's really the key is do it or not do it. Fewer is more, greater likelihood. We're confident that we picked, really effective exercises, and people don't have much time. So, this idea of listening to the readers, what are their lives really like? How can we provide the greatest benefit, within the time that they have?
And lifting heavy for most people is going to mean going to a gym,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
which you're then, so even if you did that twice a week,
You're
then
placing another barrier in there.
there's another 2 1 hour periods out
Yeah.
of your week
Mm-hmm.
with your potentially with people you live with and work with being like, where the hell is he?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
why is he falling
Yeah.
asleep at his desk again?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of thing. So there's always, right? I mean, there's always the potential conflict between what would be the ideal
Mm-hmm.
and what do ambitious people who have full lives outside of their running, what might be the best use of their very limited time and energy. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. So it's not necessarily that you don't think they should lift heavy, it's that they're not lifting, and so you want them to lift first
Yeah, sure.
and you want them to do
Sure.
your workout, your runs. The runs are
Yeah,
the yeah.
and you can do body weight stuff anywhere.
Hmm. Yeah.
You don't need a squat rack
Exactly. Yeah.
with your body weight or more on it. Because yeah, and it's not, I don't think it's helpful to say, well, what you really want to do is this, but of course that's not going to work for you. So do this instead. It's
Mm.
not super motivating.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the key comment is from Pete at the beginning, which is the best training is the one that you do.
Yeah. And you can, also, yes, maybe I'm just being a dead horse, but you might be able to get potentially slightly greater gains from lifting heavy. But as Pete said, not if you don't do it. I mentioned sauna earlier. There's stuff showing, that, sauna 4 times a week has the potential to like increase plasma volume, etc.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, you're going to start going to a sauna 4 times a week. If you're
Yeah.
a pro and it's your job, yeah, you better, you should.
Yeah.
If you're lucky to get in your mileage and some planks, then maybe sauna 4 times a week isn't practical for a slight gain.
Yeah. The most important training you're doing is the running part.
And the sleeping part, which all these other things
Yes.
with all these other things would get in the way potentially, or take time away from.
You can make it really complicated. That's a key difference between now and 7 years ago is the vast amount of information on the internet, the vast amount of e-newsletters and webinars and podcasts and what have you. And what did I see the other day? Greg McMillan put something about how many must-do exercises are there? Everybody's got, oh, these are the 7 must-do exercises. These are the 10. These are the whatever. You'd be doing them all day if you did everybody's must-do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Greg had some wisdom there. It's like, hey, similar to what we're saying, do the 6 that matter. There's countless out there that they're trying to push on you, and life can seem very complicated.
Yeah. I mean, at the risk of committing professional suicide, I will say Runner's World is absolutely horribly guilty of that stuff. Like every day there are 3 new articles about it. Like here are the 8 best, oblique exercises, And it's like, I don't think that's the main thing keeping most Runner's World readers from reaching their potential. It's that they don't run enough.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
I guess, the outside world can complicate you running a lot, but also the potential for you to complicate it yourself is now enormously enhanced by, watches, giving you heart rate data and heart rate variability and oxygenation, body battery. I get sleep data every time I wake up from my watch. And so, you're just working your way through mounds of stuff, trying to nuance your way to somewhere that you have an ambition when really maybe you just need to put your shorts on and go out and run. To that extent, I was quite pleased to see in the program where you mentioned, I think that during recovery runs in the program, of which they don't ever, I think Liz and I decided there don't ever seem to be enough, because we seem to be constantly searching for recovery. But during recovery runs, it might be a good idea to just ignore your watch. Leave your watch at home is too extreme a statement these days because everybody wants their data. But just to ignore your watch and run to a perceived effort, the perceived effort being an effort that allows you to recover. And I think that was a breath of fresh air to sort of see that coming back into programs.
Yeah, easy's good for recovery days, and if your watch is telling your heart rate is higher than you want it to be, well, that's useful. Back off. But other than that, it's got to be easy, and avoid uphills because the heart rate goes up and you're working harder, and avoid downhills because you're beating up the legs a little bit just when you want them to recover. And if you're running with someone else, make sure they're as tired as you are, or they're otherwise just generally slower than you are. So you don't get carried away and do more, because the recovery day is vital. You go too hard and then the next day you've got something purposeful to do and you can't do it. You get into that cycle of, now I'm questioning myself.
Yeah, it creeps up on you.
Yeah. So you're right. Keep it easy. Yeah.
I can give an example from a friend of mine who was stuck at 254 or 255 for several years. He didn't grow up running, so like he never was, wasn't on a team, didn't, he's all self-educated on running, didn't learn general training principles. And he was of the like, well, I'll go as hard as I can every day. but as I said, he was stuck at like 240, 254, 255 for a few years. And I was like, Travis, just do me a favor, do yourself a favor. Like the day after your long run, do not, I don't care how slow it feels, do not go faster than 8-minute pace. And he was, the first couple times he tried it, he was like, well, what is the point? It's just
Excruciating.
Feels so slow.
um,
Yeah.
and he wound up dropping to 250, almost broke 250. He's like 250.06. So he went from 254 to 250 in that. I look forward to those days. Like
Yeah.
I just like zone out, and then like when it's time to go hard again, he's like raring to go rather than dreading it. And I mean, it's like, the principles, and he can do the workouts at a higher quality, and that's what's advancing his fitness
Yeah.
more than running, 7:30 per mile on what's supposed to be an easy day rather than 8:10.
Yeah, it's surprising to me how many people don't like easy runs, or I don't know, they're resistant to them for some reason. Because I mean, those are like my favorite runs, because those are the runs where I get to like chat with my running buddies, and and we can stop at the water fountain because the time doesn't matter,
I,
Right,
and
right.
and it's so funny because like so many people just don't like take advantage of those days, and yeah, it's funny. I don't know. They run them too hard. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between the 12 and the
yeah,
18-week plans. So
we've done
I
both,
kind
haven't
of
we?
realized, yeah, and so I don't know if it was a coincidence, because it might have just been a coincidence, but when I've done the 18-week plans, I've often it's almost like I peaked and then I got injured after. And so I switched to the 12-week plans thinking, well, maybe 18 weeks is just too long. But I realized in like rereading the book that actually the 12-week plan, and we realized this actually the first time we did a 12-week plan, it was all the same workouts. They were just squished together into 12 weeks instead of 18. And so you actually suggest for masters runners to do the 18-week plans because it spaces them out a little bit more and is better for recovery. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on like
It's 18
just,
versus 12.
my strange experience?
Yeah, that's the tension, isn't it? So, I mean, imagine a 25-week plan. Um, you know, that inherently feels too long. Uh, it's hard to stay focused for that period of time. Imagine a 6-week plan. Hey, that's too short. You're not going to make much
Hmm.
change. So 12's probably the minimum where you can hope for some physiological adaptations that are going to make a difference. And you can balance work and recovery. 18's a more luxurious time period. You've got time to gradually adapt, but that can be a long time for some people.
Hmm.
And it can be a long time in terms of the mental focus, but also you have to make sure you get the physical part right, that you are getting the recovery in there. So that's the inherent tension. 18 on the long side, 12's on the tight side.
I think we tend to try and do a lot of Ks out of training as well. So when we come into the training program, we've usually got, a weekly mileage, which is more or less up there, not too far from far from what the plan is going to require you. There's not usually a jump when we start week one of the plan. There's not usually a big jump in mileage.
Well, that's good because you're partly prepared when you launch into the 12.
Okay.
When we did the 18-week program, we kind of felt a little tired, but when we ran the race marathon, we were right on schedule for a long time, for our targets, and we got beaten by the weather, I would say. Would you,
Uh,
Liz?
Hmm.
that's always been a
Um,
tough one.
Massive headwind, like 60-kilometer headwind.
oh, you're talking about Georgina.
Talking about
Yeah.
Georgina,
Georgina.
that
Oh,
was off
yeah.
the 18-week program.
Yeah, Georgina, it was like such a such a well, it wasn't a disappointment. It's like my second fastest marathon, but the first half we were just right under, like 30 seconds under the target for the half, like to do the 3 hours. So I think we ended up going through, what was it, 1:29:30 or something.
Yeah.
And it was exactly the twice the half marathon, so you knew exactly what you were going to get. And the course was like flat as a pancake, but the problem was it was by the water, and by the time we were heading out the second time, the wind had picked up. So you were just running into the wind, and the whole time, like, I remember turning around and thinking, "Oh, we got this." And then like 3 kilometers later, I'm like, I'm not so sure
We don't
anymore.
got this.
Don't got this.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
tough running
So
into a strong
Mm.
headwind
Well, that's your
anytime.
yeah. That was your problem. You should have been behind
Oh, I should have
your
hit.
training
I
partner.
should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
You
Okay.
shouldn't have turned around to talk to him. You should have yelled up ahead of him as he's blocking the
Darn.
wind for you.
Oh, well, I knew I was missing something.
Yeah.
That's tough for anyone. I mean, a strong wind in a marathon that goes for miles is going to sap the strength out of anyone. If you knew months in advance that it was going to be that, you could either prepare for running into the headwind, or you could think, hey, maybe I'm going to do a different marathon. Because we talked about
Yeah.
extreme cold. Well, miles of wind, I mean, that just saps the strength out of you, and you're going to be slower overall. So your time goal is kind of shot. So Georgina, hopefully there's some good learning from Georgina.
Well, that
Yeah.
was a few marathons ago now.
Yeah.
We've been
Anyway,
we did a
hopefully.
12-week program, and I guess we're asking a lot of questions, sort of poking at the book and the program a little bit. One of the things I should do is say that you have to doing a 12-week program and going and running in Toronto. I was able to run my second fastest ever marathon at the age of 64, having
Wow.
been running since I was 30. And only get under 3 hours for the second time ever in my life, 25 years after getting under 3 hours for the first time. So
Wow.
some of that is
That's
down to
statistical.
the advanced marathoning program. Some of that is down to having a couple of years of retirement. So I sort of went semi-professional by having all the time to train, to recover, to work on gym work and those kind of things. So like anything, it's often a jigsaw puzzle. All the pieces come together. But the advanced marathoning programming certainly worked well for me.
Well, that's great to hear. And, that's incredible at age 64. And it's interesting that, that learning or that wisdom that, okay, you had more time. And so you did more of the right things to support your running.
Mhm.
But you probably didn't do everything that you could possibly do, because this idea, there was actually, I'm trying to think, who was it, Steve Magnus Scott and a couple other guys who talked about marginal gains in the last couple of weeks, and you can marginal gain yourself to death. Focus on the key stuff, not every possible new thing you read about. So, Alan, I'm guessing that with increased time, you did more of the right beneficial things,
For sure.
but you weren't hunting around for every last thing, because that can just
Getting free consultancies from renowned running book authors has helped. So the podcast is inching us towards.
Did you has your sleep changed since you retired?
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Definitely, because
For the
Alan
better.
didn't
Yeah.
sleep very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very much like he goes to bed late, but obviously when he was working, he had to wake up early.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Since retirement, he's
I've probably gone
forgotten that
from
there's
6 hours to 7.5 hours average.
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which probably helped. It'll soon be time to wrap up, but maybe we can just talk a little bit about the workouts. And so we noticed a shift in my arch nemesis workout, the lactate threshold. You switched it to a time-based workout instead of like kilometer-based. So Now, I think the longest one, and also you give us ranges. So we no longer have to do 45 minutes, which is about what it would take me for 11 kilometers. You say 40 to 45. So we can pick, in theory. So how do we pick? Is it like when you get to 40, if you're no longer running the pace, you just scrap the last 5 minutes? Or should you like decide ahead of time? Or can you decide ahead of time? Like, can I decide because these workouts historically never work for, well, the long ones I'm historically unable to do. Should I just pick the shorter distance out of the two? Or
There's several questions in your question. One is why time versus distance. So, we do have people who are much slower than other people using the book. So,
Mhm.
the time for a 6 or 7 mile or 10 or 11K tempo run is a whole lot longer for a 4.5 hour marathoner than it is for a 3 hour marathoner. So that's why the time.
okay.
And that's partly the feedback. We get feedback. I mean, it's obvious. Maybe we should have thought of it 2 editions earlier, but better late than never. In terms of where in the range, well, it's, this short end of the range is fine. So if you feel like doing the longer, great. But if you do the shorter, that's great. So yeah, I'd say it doesn't really matter if you've each time you do that shorter end of the range, that's the fine amount to do. You don't need to do longer, but if you feel good on a particular day and you do that, that's good as well. Also, yeah, every workout has a little range now, so it's not a big range. Scott probably would have pushed for more range on some, but that it was just think about the different chapters and the 18 weeks and the 12 weeks, trying to get that right. So for pretty much just about all the workouts, we have a 2 mile or 3K range, which is just how you feel. So if you're a little tired, do the shorter bit. If you feel a bit better, you might do the longer. And then that makes the weekly, there's a bigger range because if there's a daily range, you multiply that times, 6 or 7 runs in a week. So there's a bigger weekly range, but that's great. I mean, it's allowing the person who can't quite handle the higher end to do that, the lower end of that range, but that's still enough. So that's some of the philosophy.
Okay.
Again, listening to the readers, Scott talks about, the real world, real life. So he brought that to the 4th edition.
And there's also, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think like a weekly / daily range makes the point that like, yeah, if you do it doesn't really matter if you do a 42 or a 44-minute tempo run. But I think that I think there's a subpopulation of serious runners who, if it says something precise, feel that they have to do
Yeah.
that or they have failed. And so if you said, I'm just making something up, but if you said, 9 mile general aerobic run and they're just whatever, and they stop at 8, somehow that is a failure rather than
Mhm.
you got 9, you got almost the same thing,
Yeah.
basically the same thing accomplished. So in some degrees, the ranges sort of, at least to me, are there to help people feel better about the hard work that they're doing because there's the greater chance of success in meeting the day's goal, meeting the point of whatever the day's training is.
They can give
If
themselves
it's staying in
dreams
range
and
rather than
yeah.
like a real anal retentive OCD runner who like
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
has to be precise. Which as we've talked about a few times today, like that's not how things work out.
I was kind of hoping you would both
Yeah.
tell Liz that she had to run the longer lactate thresholds.
Oh, I think Liz
Bef-
should definitely she should definitely run the longer to learn to love it
Exactly.
more.
Okay, but you know what? So you gave us another
But just
permission in the book.
start out telling yourself you're going for 40 or even tell yourself you're going out for 35 to 40 minutes, and then you'll find yourself at 40, and you're like, oh, I could do this for
But
5 more
keep
minutes.
going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a
That's
good example
that's
of mind
unofficial.
games. Okay.
That's unofficial, but that's I have a lot of days where I just I mean, I'm not following this very strict program, but I had out starting to do a 30-minute tempo run, and I wound up going
Oh wow.
45 because I'm just
That's a
I
that's a
Feeling good.
big that's a
feel
big
fine and
difference
just
though.
keep
It's like
going.
15 extra minutes.
Yeah,
But also you gave us
I get lots of
oh,
sleep.
okay. That helps. You give us
Yeah,
permission also to
yeah.
break up, I think it's the lactate threshold into intervals. Um,
Yes.
it's a yeah, which
Mhm.
I kind of like that idea. So now I can do 45, Alan. I can do 45 minutes,
Yeah.
but we're gonna do 3 times
And
15, okay?
well, in fact, doing that breakup was something that we actually did a couple of times, didn't we? Where
Yeah,
we go, oh, it's too hot.
yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah.
debilitating. We've got a medium long run to do later on in the week, and we need to have an eye on that. And let's break it up into some sections. So I guess we have a certain amount of experience with our own efforts,
Yeah.
and
But for me, it was also because I
are
just
able
couldn't
to
hold the
do that.
pace. So I was like, well, if I break it up, I might be able to hold the pace. Whereas if I don't break it up, I'm just gonna be, struggling for
Well, that's
30
perfect.
seconds per
Yeah,
K.
that's just what we hoped. Um, yeah, I think I'd held on a little too long to, the mental benefit of being on that. You're going to start your tempo run and you're going to just do
Mm,
it no matter what. You're going to, there's a benefit to that, right? So some tempo runs where it's just one, that's great mentally. It's a little different physically. But the most important thing is that you got that time at that pace. So I like the way we have it in the book that here's options. So rather than you can do 25 to 30-minute tempo run, and here's some other options that are very similar accumulated time at lactate threshold pace, which is the most important thing.
hmm So maybe we can talk about just the book itself, and I guess from your perspective, who did you write the book for? I mean, for sure, me and Alan, I guess we're the very
Yeah.
very enthusiastic amateurs. So I mean, for sure, we fall into the category, I guess, because we like these plans. But who did you write them for? And also, let's say somebody's listening and they have the older version. Is it worth picking up the new version? Um, how
Yes.
far back?
I would say everybody who's bought any of the previous editions should buy the fourth edition.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
But you would say
I
that, of
would say
course.
that.
Of
Yeah.
course,
All
yeah.
right, but
No,
you're
I
allowed
mean,
to say that. It's fine. I mean, the fourth edition
Yeah.
has a lot of interesting tweaks. So some of the content is, obviously the same because like you don't change recommendations on sleep. I mean, people should sleep. There's just no hack for sleeping 6 hours and mastering the marathon. Um,
so there's websites that have compared a whole bunch of programs, right? And they refer to advanced marathoning as a traditional approach, which I take some pride um, in that I think we do that really, really well. And we start by, we treat the marathon with respect and we assume that our readers do as well. So there's no shortcuts, you're putting in the work, but there's a lot of intelligence behind what the work is, how the recovery works, and then all the elements like the supplemental training and the nutritional component. So we're trying to use their time, efficiently. And we believe that our readers want to understand why. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to understand, why this is how things should be. So
Yeah.
we try to explain the physiology enough so that people understand the why, which allows them to be more empowered, make more of their own decisions in the training.
I think that helps the motivation a lot, understanding
Good.
behind it.
Well, that's the intent.
Yeah.
And it's not for first timers. It's not for beginning runners. It's for people who've run, say a marathon or several marathons or many marathons. but they're committed and they want to improve. And so that's who we've written this book for. And it's not for elites. We don't.
Although
we're not
that last plan in the
on the
book,
top
are
1%.
you sure that that's not for elites? The last plan in the book, the one that's over 85 miles. I don't know. I was looking at that and I'm like, I think I would have to run to and from work every day of the week almost to get all those
Maybe
runs
it's
in.
maybe it's for people who are younger than us, Liz.
Because I think there's double runs like 4 times a week or something like that.
Yeah, so that's another way in which elites get off easy, is that it doesn't take a whole lot of time to run 100 miles a week when you're fast.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
Okay.
I think one interesting thing, I mean, if you from the first edition to the current edition, is I would say that the book is more relevant to a larger percentage of the overall running population than it was back then, because so many more runners now, I think in part because of sort of the confluence of like data and shoes, etc., and social media, are more performance oriented than was the case 20 years ago. And which I don't, which isn't necessarily defined by like some arbitrary sub 3 or whatever. But a lot of those people, I would guess most of those people were like adult onset runners, didn't grow up, running in high school on a team in college. And so they want to do well, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge base from which to make the best decisions about how to do that. And so to me, the first section where the principles are explained is sort of more important than it was 20 years ago. If I can reference my friend again who went from 254 to 250, when I gave him the book, I just signing it, I said, like, memorize chapter 1, you know? And he sent this photo. He's on vacation in Alaska, and he's just like he's reading the book.
Studying.
And it really helps him to understand the idea behind what he's going to do in the second section. Anyway, so our readers are the same. You could have them described in the same way, but I think that, as I said, I think that there are a greater percentage of the running community now than was the case 20 years ago. But they don't necessarily have the knowledge base that they might benefit from having because of there just being so much stuff out there.
Yeah. I find that it's good you touch on a little bit of everything because, a lot of adult onset runners, they've never done drills. If they've never been part of a club, they've never done drills. And so,
Right.
you have I think only 3 in the book. But I mean, 3 is already something,
More than 90% of
drills.
runners do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's good. So where would you like to direct listeners that want to get a copy? Is there anywhere in particular or just the website is fine?
I'm a fan of bookshop.org. It's my anti-Amazon
Excellent.
go-to.
And if there's a specialty running store in your community that stocks the book, please go there and buy some other stuff because they're committed, those people, to running.
Yeah.
There's not that many of them are out there, and there's not that many of them probably that have our book, but that would be cool if more did, and if more people went in and
asked for it, they might order it.
yeah.
I'm in North Yarmouth, Maine, and I have about 10 extra copies. So if people want to stop by and buy one from me, they can do that as well.
Okay.
Get a selfie with it at the same time.
Yeah.
That's right.
Is that extra?
Free
Scott?
selfie. Yeah.
Okay.
Free selfie. Bonus.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
All right. And then if people want to follow you online, you mentioned no Instagram. So tell us where people can follow you.
There's an advanced marathoning Facebook page, so please follow.
Awesome.
Please follow it. And when I put a question out, hey, what are you training for, that sort of thing, please reply, because the more the more banter, the merrier. But yeah, I think it's technically the Advanced Marathoning and Faster Road Racing Facebook page.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We can put that in the
And
notes maybe as well.
I'm on Substack, and there is a photo of my dog yawning while looking at advanced marathoning. It's part of my Substack, so it's related.
Uh,
I love it.
okay.
Photos of dogs is one of our favorite
There you
pastimes.
go.
Okay.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Alan. Hopefully we'll see you again in less than 6 years.
Exactly. Yeah, we're looking forward to
For
it.
us.
Fifth edition. Yes.
For fifth edition.
All right.
All the best. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Maybe we'll get our
Yeah.
photographs in there.
Bye-bye.
We've
Yep,
got your
bye-bye.
photos on the
And
wall.
Neil.
We're waiting
Okay.
for you. Take care. See you.
Bye.
Cheers. Okay, Advanced Marathoning, fourth edition. By Scott Douglas and Pete Pfitzinger. Kind of in a strange sort of way, I would say the book is generally a more friendly edition than the previous issues. It's friendly just in the way it presents itself. So it's got a photograph on the front which is less professional runners orientated, and inside they've brought color to the book. So there's color photographs, there's color tabs and sections and colored out blocks. So it just the pages seem to be more glossy as well. So it just all presents like as a more friendly, sort of easy browsing book. But also the content of it is a bit more friendly. You know, there are ranges. From our point of view, there's more kilometers, so you don't have to do the conversion to miles in your head. It's all the kilometers is sort of added on. Some of the runs have ranges. There's a little bit less intensity, even though the programs are still tough. So it's just kind of more friendly, I think was the sort of
Mhm.
conclusion that I came to. The technical content, I think the core technical content in terms of what sort of running you got to do is basically the same. So, you know, there are blocks of endurance, there are blocks of lactate threshold endurance, there's then a block of race specificity running, which has also some VO2 max in it, and then paper. And all the programs work on those blocks and the principles of that. And I think that's good news. It shows consistency with previous thinking. You know, they're not throwing it out and doing something else. And then they've evolved it, they've tweaked it. And as I say, it's a bit more friendly, but I got to tell you, it's still
Mhm.
going to be challenging. So if you're thinking of getting on board with this, come with your best pair of running shoes. You'll need them. But potentially could be quite rewarding for you. I would say the fourth edition of Advanced Marathon is still going to be one of my key references and probably be my guidebook for my personal marathon training in 2026.
I guess I might be echoing a little bit of the same thing, but I'll just start by saying that, you know, I think most listeners probably they hear me talking about these plans because um, you know, I even followed advanced marathoning last year while training for the marathon on my own. And I still followed that plan. I did the 12-week version, the 55 to 70 mile version. Um, and yeah, I like, as much as I don't like the lactate threshold and marathon pace workouts, I actually really enjoy the medium long runs. I just find that because you end up running about, like, you end up doing your long run and then you also end up running like another like half marathon midweek and sometimes twice during the week, it just kind of makes you feel hardened to the whole marathon experience. And I generally felt ready for the marathon. I mean, I didn't always get the result I was looking for. But like I kind of feel like my legs, except for the years where I ended up injured instead of fit, I feel like when I get it right, I can go into the marathon like mostly confident, as confident as I will be at least. I think that the some of the changes that they did were great in terms of just the time-based workouts for the lactate threshold. and those kinds of things. I love the updated cover look. So it's a different photo, obviously, because, well, like Scott and Pete mentioned before we started recording, the cover photo was like Shalane Flanagan, who is retired since I don't know, I don't remember what year, but she's been retired now for a few years. So you know, it was time for a little bit of a refresh, but they did a good job. It's like a photo of the Boston Marathon finish, and the main subject's got like his hands in the air in triumph, and it looks really good. Also, I really enjoyed rereading Advanced Marathoning because it was kind of like I've had so much experience with the plans that it was like the details were more eye-opening, because I think the first time around there was so much information that I read through it, and I picked up like the big picture things, but there were a lot of nuances that maybe like, you know, Alan and I had sort of figured out on our own for ourselves, but in this fourth edition, they actually included them. So the things like, you know, the ranges for the daily mileage, those kinds of things. Like Alan and I did some of that stuff on our own. For example, you know, if we ended the run and we were at his house and we had like half a kilometer short, well, I just stopped. So, you know, we kind of did that kind of stuff already.
In many ways, it's nice that the book is now giving us permission to do the things that we already
It
kind of
is,
worked
yeah,
in, you know.
yeah. And then the other thing that I appreciated reading was about because you have sort of like a long run is supposed to be sort of a little bit more up tempo. It's not an easy run, but it's not a marathon pace run. It's kind of in between. And so we had calculated our paces for that. And we would be very preoccupied with hitting an average pace for the whole run that was within the range that the book said. And in the book, they actually said, well, no, you can actually take up to the first 8 kilometers to warm up into long run pace.
Crank
Yeah.
up to the
And then
pace
hold the
and then
pace.
hold
And
the
so this
pace.
is like this is something that I'm going to be bringing into the next training cycle, because sometimes
For
it was
sure.
really difficult. Like we would give ourselves a little bit of time to warm up into the pace, but we gave ourselves what, maximum 3K, because then we were usually two,
Usually
because we were
2.
worried about
Yeah.
then having to make up,
Getting too
having to
far
make
off the
up the
pace.
seconds that we
Yeah.
had lost. And in the end, like we didn't have to worry about that at all. So so next training cycle is gonna be less worrying, more running.
We also had one coach, one running buddy with us who would run along and go, okay, we need to accelerate. We need to pick up our average, because his watch measures average
Yeah,
pace. So he would
and
accelerate
get the
us to
average
try and
pace and get,
sort of
yeah,
regain the
yeah.
average. Yeah.
So you had to basically make up for your warm up by running way faster afterwards, which was probably silly. Yeah. So
Mm.
anyway, all in all, I think that they did a really good job in updating the book, and I know that they answered some of our questions and just took care of some of the things that we found difficult. So I'm sure that for other people, if you're out there
Yeah.
and you've been following these plans, or you do have a previous version of the book, I think that that you'll like the changes in this one. Thanks for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you to Human Kinetics and for both Scott and Pete for spending time with us today. Human Kinetics sent us review copies of the books, which is very much appreciated. If you're listening to the podcast and you'd like to know how you can help us out, there are a few ways. First of all, you can share an episode with your favorite running partner. Maybe you're going to share this one so that then you can both buy the book and propose that you follow the plans for your next marathon training cycle. You can also follow us on social media. We post releases of the episodes. We also have a platform that we're on called Buy Me a Coffee, where we post other things that are related to our running, but they're not specifically about running books. So you can follow us on there. If you follow us on Buy Me a Coffee, you do get emails sent to you whenever we put something new up there, which is not very often, but every so often there'll be something. And also you can rate us. So on your favorite podcast streaming platform, whether that's Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can rate us out of 5 stars. And if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, you can even leave us a written review. So 5 stars are always appreciated, but if ever you're going to give us less than 5 stars.
Liz is desperate to get a 1-star review.
I'm not desperate to get a 1-star review, but if you don't think that we deserve 5, if you could please let us know why, then that would be very much appreciated so that we can improve. And if you want to suggest books for us to review in a future episode, then you can always contact us on social media, either our Instagram account, Running Book Reviews, or we are reviews_running on Twitter. And I think we're Running Book Reviews on Facebook.
That's all for now. Bye.